I find architecture and design to be one big puzzle. That's what I love most about it.
What I do is inconsequential. Why I do what I do is I get to shorten people's journeys every day. What I love about our hospitality industry is that it's our mission to make people feel cared for while on their journeys. Together, we'll explore what hospitality means in the built environment, in business, and in our daily lives. I'm Dan Ryan, and this is Defining Hospitality. This podcast is sponsored by Berman Falk Hospitality Group, a design-driven furniture manufacturer who specializes in custom case goods and seating for hotel guest rooms. Today's guest is an architect and entrepreneur. He's got over 20 years of architectural experience, and he's not only a member of the American Institute of Architects, but also on the State of Maine's board of AIA as a respected leader and educator at the University of Maine, Augusta as well. His expertise spans multiple scales of architecture from residential to commercial projects. He's also the president of the Board of Architalks, a nonprofit lecture series in Portland, Maine that happens every April. He turns creative vision into brand impact through design, architecture, and interior architecture and design. And he is a principal and the founder of AAmp Studio. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Andrew Ashey. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Dan. Happy to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here as well. And I just want to let our listeners know that we met years and years ago at a former podcast guest, Dave Kaplan's wedding. Shout out to Dave and Jenna. And hi, Dave. Hi, Jenna. But we saw you, I met you there. And then, I think we crossed paths a bunch of different times through our friend groups over the years. And then I was at an NEWH New England event and I was sitting in the front row and there was a panel discussion up on stage. And I was like, you look so familiar. You look so familiar. And I took a picture of you and I sent it to Dave actually. And I said, is this Andrew? And he goes, yep, tell him I say hi. And I was just blown away and also felt horrible at my job for not having connected with you and connected all the dots sooner. So thank you.
That photo found its way into my pocket during the panel when I saw it on the side. And so I had to wonder for the next 30 minutes who took the photo and where it came from. So I was very happy that you came up right after and said, oh.
It was me from the grassy knoll. I was there from the book depository.
Yes, very happy to have reconnected that day after many years. Under very, very different circumstances.
So when I first met you at the wedding, I knew you were an architect, but I maybe I didn't ask what types of projects you had worked on or connected the dots, or maybe because when I'm in a social setting, it's not one of the things I try to never do is be like, oh, what do you do? And like do that whole thing because that's boring. That's like talking about real estate prices at a cocktail party also it's just not something I normally do, but I don't know. It's just funny how now here we are. But so now I didn't realize, and having seen you up on the stage at NEWH, which is the hospitality network. So you've done so many different types of projects and typologies, as I said in your intro, but you've developed this focus into hospitality as well. So why is that? And I guess the better question is what does hospitality mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess there are a few questions in there. Yeah, our work does span quite a bit across ground up built work, adaptive reuse, hospitality, residential, and kind of getting a little bit into institutional. But, I'd say across all of those, all of those design aspects, including and especially related to kind of hospitality design, I would say design really is about kind of the body. It's about the people and your body's experience in it. So when you think about design, you often think about how things look, but also, it's about how it feels, how it smells, how it sounds, how kind of the space fits to the ergonomics of your body. I think it's really important that the kind of experience of the user or the occupant, really kind of has a holistic experience across the senses, not just aesthetically, because that can start to kind of create an emotional response. Whether it's a smile, whether it's relaxation, whether it's excitement, that is all driven by our environment and the spaces that are designed to kind of cater to it. And you know, it it creates an individual and collective memory that is important in social interactions and in community and in kind of how we live. It fuels connection, it fuels desire, it kind of elicits a response to return. So I think they're like all in how your body experiences space is quite important in that regard, particularly as it relates to hospitality. I mean, hospitality design has a special niche in that it's different from architecture or, solely interior design because it really involves all of them. It's architecture, it's interior design, it's FF&E, it's OS&E, it's the levels of lighting, it's the sound of the audio, where the audio is placed, and then you're working with the teams that are in hospitality, the operations teams to, you know, plateware, tableware. Like, we don't really get into that aspect, but we're often involved in those kind of conversations with the team, particularly as it relates to branding. We do a lot of branding for our hospitality clients. All the way from naming down to kind of menu and collateral design, wayfinding, all of that, it all scales from the sign on the bathroom door to the walls that are around you and the ceiling over your head. We really love that whole thing because it's that whole range because we really do find it to be a holistic design experience.
One of the things I'm fascinated by in your career path is that not only do you have a company doing architecture and interior architecture and design, but you also dedicate, like, the most valuable resource any of us have in our life is our time, right? You also dedicate a tremendous amount of time to impacting others, which could be students, your architects, being a teacher, showing up to an NEWH event to share your experience on stage with other people at various stages in their career within hospitality. And that resonates with me tremendously because I do this podcast once a week. It's a couple hours a week, but it's such a passion of mine to be able to do this and talk to awesome people like you. But one of the reasons why I keep doing it, aside from being world famous and just kidding, with my millions of listeners and followers, no, but one of the reasons that keeps me doing it is students, interns, and people very early in their career get a lot of insights from all the people I talk to. And I get really cool feedback from people where they say, oh, I didn't consider that element, or, oh, wow, I didn't know that there were people that did audio design or scent design, or like, it's a kind of a spectrum of all the opportunities that hospitality and specifically hospitality design can offer young people entering in, and even people later that might want to change their career, right, within our world. So you're very busy doing all of this stuff. What keeps you dedicating a big chunk of your time to impacting others?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we value it highly in our studio. Anne-Marie Armstrong, who's my studio partner, based in Toronto. I'm based in Portland, Maine. But she and I have known each other for over 20 years. The studio's been going for nearly 10 years. And since the start, we've really valued and made sure to include, aspects of research and education. And I think with those two kind of, anchors at the very start of our studio, that's kind of pivoted out into more community engagement. We really love, not only do we love, to research and teach and engage with the academic community, we're also sponges, like we really want to understand like what's out there, what's going on, what people are saying, what are the new perspectives. We try to avoid silos as much as possible for our staff, for us, for our project types, all of this. So the more we can kind of break the kind of, the not the rigor, but the automatic kind of standardization or I can't quite think of the word, but you know, you can get into patterns. It's very easy to fall into patterns. And I think that as you engage in different parts of the season or the year in different groups, like whether it be Architalks, the lecture series, or teaching, or you know, AIA Main, from my perspective, and Anne Marie has a whole tool of her own. But it just gives you a lot of variety and different perspectives. It keeps things kind of exciting and interesting. It helps us to, you know, pitch in where we can. Like, you know, we're part of the community, and I think we all should play a role in participating it to some degree. I'll say it was very difficult, kind of in the beginning, especially when we were just starting, to make time for this. It felt almost selfish in a way. I guess I'll say from a personal perspective. I can't say for Anne Marie, but it's like, you know, we should be focusing on the projects and on the studio. But you know, over time, the more you do it, you realize you are focusing on the studio. Like all of these things are extremely valuable to the studio. So it and it's a part of our identity now, and one that we don't want to, you know, go away or diminish at all. We only want to kind of make it grow. And you know, we're a studio of about 10 now, and you know, we hold, you know, annual retreats, and we do, you know, quarterlies, etc. And so we try to always revisit this and think about this, and you know, relay to our team that we, you know, we encourage them to do this as well. You know, we encourage them to engage in academia or teach or into, you know, groups like, you know, Maine Interior Design Association or AIA. We think it's important to get out there and just be part of the community. It helps them, and it also, you know, from, again, to go back from some selfish level, this is not why, but it creates awareness for AMP too. So, and
Yeah.
it's all good.
Okay, so what I heard you say there in the beginning was, with your quarterlies, your retreats, connecting with people, I feel like much in the same way that I learned from Dave at Death & Co. and other entrepreneurs that are here, I think there's like two types of entrepreneurs. There's entrepreneurs who invest heavily and debt and time and money into the culture of a business, right? And then there's other entrepreneurs who are, and I'm not judging either one. Then there's other entrepreneurs who are just like, okay, we're just targeted, we're going, and that's part of their culture as well. But I feel like there's certain businesses out there, and you can name any and all of them, it doesn't even matter. When you walk into a studio or a place of business or a bar, you can just smell it. Not actually, but you can just get that feeling that they got the culture right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like for me doing this, it keeps this pipeline of me interacting with younger people, because while hospitality is so much about how you make others feel and meeting them where they are, the experience that it's packaged in changes over time as generations change. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having that pipeline and investing and dedicating that time to students or people new in their career, it pays back dividends in ways that you can't experience. So I want to go back to your entrepreneurial start. When you started AMP,
Mm-hmm.
did you know from the beginning that you wanted to dedicate the time and invest your time and resources into building that type of culture? Or is it something that you figured out once you had the shingle up and you were kind of moving through and paying bills and paying people and executing on projects?
And no, I'd say we knew it from the start. Architecture, which is, you know, we do architecture, interior design, branding, but really my kind of education and degree and background is in architecture primarily. And architecture as a profession is notoriously, you know, overworked and underpaid, and there's very little work-life balance. So Anne Marie and I both, you know, in our previous positions at studios before starting AMP, both experienced this considerably. So, you know, we're very aligned in the way we approach. We're very different people, but very aligned in a lot of things. And one of them is that we both really, really highly value kind of work-life balance. And I think just with that general mindset comes sort of a cultural approach to the studio. That, leads into things that we were just talking about, extracurriculars, research, but just, being amenable to, allowing the team to have a little bit of freedom, in their day, and just to, I don't know, not be such like an architect with a capital A dictator. Like, really, design comes from the whole team. And we really, not only the team, it comes from the client, and it comes from, consultants, and it comes from our contractors. Like, I mean, we really love and value to work collaboratively. It's one of the things we value the most. And the other one is a democratic process. And when we say democratic, really, it's not just within our team, but it's, it's with the client. It's with, like I said, the contractor, consultants, et cetera. We really want to make sure we open up time and space for everyone to kind of have a voice when the time is right. We go through a very lengthy, not very lengthy, I would say a little bit lengthier than usual, kind of discovery process with our clients at the beginning.
Oh yeah. So actually,
yeah.
I want to dig into that, because like what I also find, and I think this is going to lead into where you were going. So sorry to cut you off. What I also
That's okay.
find is that the friends of mine who are entrepreneurs and have the companies that are the employees treat them as, or see them as, oh, these are the best places to work. They enjoy it. They have such high employee retention. It's because they invest in their own internal culture, people, and processes. Because I think that many people who are creative and artistic, process they may see as stifling, but I also find that many creative people and just entrepreneurs in general, if you really nail the process down and you have a system, it kind of creates all this other white space, like a whiteboard that you can just be ultimately creative with. So pretend for a second I was a new client or contractor or someone on a project team, and you were onboarding me. Like, what is your process, and how long did it take you to figure out? And I'm sure you continually adapt it, but how firm are you in your process? How did it develop? And what are the benefits of having such a strong process?
That's that's a great question. It's a lot. It's relatively loaded. But I would say generally, for clients, potential clients, current clients, what we value in clients, we really value thoughtfulness. We value clients who are collaborative, rather than transactional. We care about context, continuity, and meaning within a design. We want to, we want clients who see design as a long-term investment, and ones who appreciate kind of clear communication. And I would say clear communication is kind of one of the most fundamental parts of the process for us. And, if you have clear communication, you can clearly communicate that we have a proven process, and you can talk about it without being kind of run down, a lane that hasn't been proven in the studio. So all to say, with those kind of bumpers in mind about a client, we start with a discovery process, where we kind of outline a lot of the next phases, but it's really our first meeting or two are not about design. We're not designing. We're not putting pencil to paper. We're not showing you sketches. We're generally sometimes not showing you any images or anything. It's really like a conversation, because everyone's coming to the table with preconceived notions, whether it's about a past project, whether it's about the space itself, whether it's about the brand. We want to get all of that off the table so that we can get it all back on the table in a different order. And then once you do that, you can kind of reframe the structure collectively. And sometimes sometimes it's very quick, but sometimes it takes a meeting or two. And sometimes it does take a little bit of sketching around to kind of open people's minds a bit, ours and the clients. I'm not, we come with preconceived notions too, so we want to scrub those. But that's a really big part of the process. And then after that, it's really about allowing the design team to step away a little bit and just get our heads around it, you know? So I think any design team needs that to be able to just step away and process and come back to the client, whether it's somewhat baked or not. But, you know, sometimes clients really want to be involved, and we really appreciate that. And we love involvement. We love conversations. We love to meet, but the design team does need a little bit of time to step away every now and then. And we make sure to communicate that in the very beginning, and outline, you know, I'm not going to go into our process completely of the whole structure of the sequence and cadence, but
No, we don't need
you
to
know,
put everyone to sleep on that front.
no,
But
exactly. We
but
won't.
I,
But there's a cadence throughout the design process that we have very much proven within our own studio.
a cadence internal and external.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
A series of deliverables and milestones, basically set over a certain amount of time. Yeah.
Wonderful. And one of the reasons why I wanted to drill into the process a little bit, stepping into the time machine and going back to when you were sitting up on the DS, like as part of this panel, talking about hospitality design in Boston. I'll frame this up this way. So I talk to a lot of hotel hospitality people, I'll use general managers of hotels as an example.
Mhm.
There are general managers that love to come into a hotel or restaurant or anything that's up and running, and they can optimize and continue to build culture and recruit, retain, and outperform and just make this asset hum, right? Then
Mhm.
there's other general managers, and they're rare. They are the ones who like the renovation process and like repositioning and come in at a new, like just at the starting point of a new hotel. And they're very, very different people, both important, right? And what
Mhm.
struck me about with you being up on stage, and and my memory could be playing tricks on me here, but with architects and designers, there are ones who like repositioning projects as like a normal box, and we're going to go and we're going to optimize this. And then on that spectrum, on the other end, there are ones who love that adaptive reuse challenge.
Mhm.
And rare do they intersect, but I got the feeling that you love the challenge
Mm.
of that adaptive reuse, it scares so many away, because as organized as you can be, and as milestone driven and as tight as your culture and strong as your culture could be, when you really start ripping the walls out in adaptive reuse, you're like, oh my God, this is insane. But it works for you. And you've had like a lot of success in that area. So how long did it take you to find that appreciation of that, like, ultimate puzzle mastery?
I'm glad you call it puzzle mastery. I don't know if it's mastery, but puzzle making. Generally I find architecture and design to be one big puzzle. That's what I love most about it. Secretly, I love puzzles as well, just generally. But yeah, I think that I don't want to say. Well, I guess I'll say, you know, as a relatively young practice, not that, you know, we're about 10 years old, as I mentioned. A lot of the projects you tend to get when you're starting out tend to be in existing spaces, right? You're not generally just jumping right in and doing ground up projects. So I'd say there's just a level of natural acclimation to that, and you just kind of where most, you know, architects or designers land when they're starting their practice. And we've been fortunate enough that it's branched out into, you know, both ground up, you know, new builds, as well as kind of retrofits and adaptive reuse. And they've scaled up as well, considerably. So, you know, one being a 50-room boutique hotel in Savannah called Municipal Grand that just opened in July.
Oh yeah, that was the one was that the one you were talking about when you were up on stage? There was something about, I don't remember if it was the facade. There was something insane about the project that it was like you had to almost work in your design process, work in a lot of discovery into what was there, but also not wanting to change it, as difficult as it wound up being, right? Am I right?
Exactly. Yes, that's a whole nother kind of topic a little bit. You know, it's related, but there's a lot of kind of NPS and historic approvals related to that in the
Yeah.
design process. But I guess I'll say that one, a number of bars and restaurants, we've done kind of adaptive reuse style projects, and we're doing another 100-room hotel in an old kind of Beaux-Arts. It actually Maine's first high rise. It's a 10-story building in the center of Portland, Maine,
Oh, wow.
into another hotel. But, you know, it,
Which one is
from the
that?
smalls, it's well, I don't know if I can say that they're still working through the name, so
Okay.
I can't. Yeah, but construction has begun.
Okay.
And it's at 465 Congress Street in Portland, Maine. If
Got it.
anybody wants to look it up,
Okay.
it's under construction, which is very exciting. It's set to open in April of 2027. So we're actually reviewing the model room build out in a couple of weeks. So we're pretty excited. It's moving along. But anyway, backing up a bit, I would say, you kind of naturally land to some level in, adaptive reuse, and it is extremely exciting for us. I guess I'll say, like, over half of our projects have been of this type. We find working with existing buildings to be not only kind of exciting and challenging, but also rewarding in that it's one of the most sustainable things you can actually do is to reuse architecture instead of tearing it down. And a lot of what was built, in the past, you just can't build it anymore. So you really want to work with these beautiful assets that just sit, and they're sitting there and waiting to kind of be reborn again. It helps us, we really, really value kind of stewardship and care. And we feel that, we can be stewards to these buildings and creating a new life, not only for themselves, but also bringing new life to the neighborhoods that they're in. You know, both of the buildings in Savannah and in Portland actually were built as banks, right? Big, beautiful double height banks with, offices above. And, while one's kind of a mid-century building, the other one is a little bit more Beaux-Arts or neoclassical. It's that typology, that public typology, just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need big grand bank lobbies anymore. So, they're all giving themselves. I guess they're all giving way to different program. And, there's just one example of two that are turning into hotels. And I know of many, and I'm sure you do, of many banks that have turned into hotels. But there's so many different buildings and different types that are just, there's so many different ways to repurpose a building. And it's really exciting. I think that the most exciting thing for us is, like, the unique context. I mean, we could, if you gave us a piece of land and said, build a hotel, we'd be equally excited, but it's lacking the kind of, I guess, underlying, it's lacking like a little bit of a story or a history that's already there, that's so fun to work with. And, it has its challenges, as you mentioned, asbestos, structural, that's, needs to be, mitigated, or sorry, not mitigated, but retrofit. So there's a lot of things, facade updates, getting it to be up to code. In the one in Portland, we're adding an entire second, we're pushing a whole second staircase into the center of this 10-story historic high rise. So there's just so many challenges that come with it, but it's like I said, or you said, it's a puzzle, and it's fun. Not sure if I answered your question, but I get excited.
No, you did.
About stuff
And
like this.
I think it just gives a little color to the mindset of architects and designers who are kind of drawn to those. I don't mean to pigeonhole you in that. I don't know, into that adaptive reuse kind of typology, because looking at your portfolio, you do you have a very broad spectrum of the types of
Yes.
projects that you work on. But I do think that it is interesting that those more complicated projects, oftentimes, I'm always amazed at, like, what the contingency budgets must be on those things, because you don't know what happens until you get to the very end. Is there a different weighting on a development budget that they might add to contingency as like a rule of thumb, or to the pro forma budget of as far as how they manage their exposure?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, certainly we will always advise contingency on any project, and we'll advise it to go higher in an adaptive reuse or an existing space, especially one that's very old. And then, as with any project, that the contingency goes down as the phases go along and you get closer to knowing what's kind of happening. But with these kind of buildings, you don't really know until you're in it. And we're kind of, I think, nearly fully demoed with the portions that are, it's an historic building, so we're not demoing very much, but in the one in Portland as a case study or as an example, we're still discovering things kind of at the end of demo. And even as you start to build, you're going to discover things. So that's just par for the course. And it's the contingency that the client has set aside. And related to that, you want to make sure you're working with clients who kind of know what they're doing. You don't want to go into a 10-story historic building with somebody who's never done it before. So it's great when there's experience from the contractor, experience from the architect, experience from the client. All of these are very important. And it's, for instance, one of the reasons we went with the contractor that we did. They had very recent experience and a number of experience kind of doing a similar type of project. And I guess one thing you want to be aware of is even in the design process, if the client already owns the building, which in most cases they probably do, otherwise they wouldn't be spending so much money on the process, doing probes and doing investigative work as you're designing. If you're making a big move that makes you scratch your head about if the building can support it, do some pre-demo or do some, minor scope probes. And, that's a huge part of the process. And, we were in design for about a year, and I think we went in and did probes, or we got early demo permits to go in and take certain things out so that we understood the costs before, construction commenced, and so that we could get some clarification to our questions in our drawings. So that's the most comprehensive drawing set we could provide.
Hey, everybody. We've been doing this podcast for over 3 years now. And one of the themes that consistently comes up is sustainability. And I'm just really proud to announce that our sponsor, Berman Falk Hospitality Group, is the first within our hospitality industry to switch to sustainable and recyclable packaging, eliminating the use of styrofoam. Please check out their impact page in the show notes for more info. Are you keeping the vault in the bank?
Yes.
And then I'm always amazed because those become such cool spaces, but they're kind of hard to work with. How do you approach something like that?
They are hard to work with. I don't know that I'm at liberty to give this away. But I think there's a desire always to just make it like a bar or a lounge or, kind of a speakeasy thing. And the client has moved away from that, and it's part of a very nice amenity, I'll say, which is very fun. So it's a supportive amenity to the hotel guests and to potentially the broader public. But it's very central to the design, and it's kind of it's an adjacent experience. It's not like in the main space, as most vaults aren't, but. Anyway, that was this one. The one in Savannah, the client was particularly keen on not having any speakeasy or bar or lounge associated with it. So it's a beautiful, beautiful object that sits as part of the kind of public bathroom lounge, I'll say. The bathrooms weren't designed as kind of your standard bathrooms. There's sofas and kind of makeup locations, or I don't know, vanity locations, I'll say. But it sits within that space, and behind it is, funny enough, just kind of a service office for the team. But it's a beautiful object. Inside, it didn't have much to write about, which is kind of why it ended up that way. But
you could make one hell of a escape the room experience for your guests.
You could, and this the one in Portland has many vaults. So I think we have like 4 different vault doors that we're kind of relocating in certain locations to be a little bit more. Play into the design a little bit more, because not all of the vaults can be used.
Cool.
Yeah.
As you look back over just your career and the projects that you've worked on since you've been at AAmp and started AAmp, from residential to commercial and all points in between, taking from all those different typologies and the different aesthetics that run through all of them and the different stories. If you were to take that whole vast experience and think about the future on like a dream hospitality project, but pulling from all of those, What's a dream project look to you in the hospitality space?
Well, I would say one that is, you know, multi-use, I guess. That kind of stems a little bit outside of hospitality, but and public serving, I would say those are the two big things. We really value like flexibility and growth of a space. It's one of the reasons I think we love adaptive reuse is that, buildings and people aren't really stuck in time, like use and patterns change. So, I think that's why I kind of say mixed use is that, you know, understanding that you have a central core primary program with ancillary program that are somewhat flexible and nimble and able to kind of interact with or change or adjust that primary program, I think is kind of a fun multi-headed beast that brings in a lot of not only variety of design, but also variety of like activation, which I think is exciting. And that kind of lends itself to the public aspect. We really, I think, all of our projects and clients really are private clients because they're residential or commercial hospitality. It's, on the commercial side, it's for profit for the most part, but we really value, one of the reasons we love hotels and restaurants and bars is it is public serving and public facing. It's really part of the community. We consider the rooms to be extensions of the street. So when we have that aspect or that challenge, like it's really fun to think about the users and experiences in different parts of the day. How does this impact its neighbors? Again, the community context matters to us. So I think that's really important. And I would say from an ideal project perspective, sorry, it's, it's adaptive reuse or it's ground up, honestly. Even though we love adaptive reuse, we also really, really love ground up. And we do, a lot of ground up architecture. We're working on 12, it's a multi-residential project with 11, sorry, I don't know why I said 12, 11 townhomes. So kind of larger scale ground up construction. And to that end, actually, that's a tangent. There's so many similarities between hospitality and residential that are so fun to play with. But that's a different topic.
Well, just looking at your projects, your portfolio on your website, I'm always drawn to those residential projects that you keep the bones and reuse what's there for the older, like you have this one colonial house. I forget where it is. It's in Toronto, maybe.
Bessborough residence, yeah.
Bessborough, but you have like the old bones and you kind of probably do a gut reno, make it all up to code and new and fresh and new HV, everything, but it looks awesome. And then you put this new kind of completely different experience next to it. I love to me, that's a really exciting thing to do where you can marry the two together.
Yeah, it's really fun. The client was really excited. They loved their old brick colonial, and we did too. And they wanted to really preserve the character of it, but it didn't work for them at all. So you're right, it was a full gut reno. There's some really fun photos of it actually, fully like the full brick shell with a completely hollow interior. All the floor slabs have been taken out and everything, but we doubled the size of the house. So we kind of call that project a little bit stealth because you can't tell that that's actually doubled in size. But we took the form and the vernacular of the colonial house and applied it to what you're saying is the kind of new structure, which is little bit more or a lot more modern, kind of a black, almost, it doesn't mirror it at all, but it uses the vernacular language of the windows and the gabled roof and siding. And we actually, around the corner, I'm not sure which images you've seen, but we tore down a garage that was there and we repurposed all of the brick on a portion of the exterior, so that it kind of,
oh, I see that. Like next to that outdoor patio.
It's all new, awesome. But it's kind of the old material hugging the new material. So yeah, it was just a fun way to tie the two.
Oh wow! I was just looking at the front photos, and now I went around the side, and it gets even more interesting. So
yeah, so that's all existing brick, which is kind of fun.
So this is actually a good exercise here. So in adaptive reuse, you can make a bigger contingency, right? And you can kind of anticipate it, but it's so hard to see around corners and what you might find. So imagine or can you draw from a past project where you worked on where you, for whatever happened, like that was an existing condition, you guys went, not you, is it, but the project went way
Hmm.
over on the contingency. But at the end, and that might have been really painful for the owner or the fund, whether it's public or a private enterprise or a private individual. Um, but at the end of the day, what kind of a testimonial would the client give you, as painful as it might have been busting through it because of whatever unforeseen experience, existing conditions, but the end outcome was just so great. What's something that someone has said to you where it might not have gone the way as planned from right from the beginning?
Oh boy, I don't know. I'm trying to recall testimonials, and if I'm understanding your question correctly, it's kind of overcoming unforeseen challenges, but it's still working out.
Yes. No, and exceeds everyone's expectations, right? There's
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know, like you could find asbestos or some other structural thing you weren't accounting for, and it just blows the budget. But your team, your process, not just you, but like how you work in Congress with the architect, the engineers, everyone, it's still, while you may have blown through the budget because of these things that are not your fault, you've cared to use your word of steward, you stewarded the
Hmm.
whole team to other solutions and met or exceeded the expectations at the outset of the project.
Yeah. That's a great question, and one that I have a different kind of answer for you, related, but specific to that one about unforeseen conditions. I think, unfortunately, unforeseen conditions is usually dealing with a lot of abatement of like
Mhm.
asbestos or water, like, adjusting kind of waterproofing or adjusting kind of cracks in a facade, like, or structural, like, there's always kind of structural things in an old building, especially in the basement. So, kind of adding unforeseen reinforcing to basement. So none of it's really that sexy. So I'm sure sometimes it is, like when you discover, when you can really celebrate the unforeseen condition. I would say that's probably pretty rare.
Mhm.
So I don't know that we have any wow moments of spending a lot of money on unforeseen conditions, other than being prepared for them. I would say, that's maybe a testimonial, like making like having the client understand and acknowledge that it was important to hold that aside.
And also kind of maybe we don't know what we can't see around the corner, but look, in this basement or in this beam or this part of the structure, there may be something more than you're anticipating. It's almost like you can telegraph those things happening, um, to help ease the pain. But then maybe let's switch back to like the question that you had an answer to just a second ago.
Yeah, yeah. I'll say it relates to this in that the client, what this is in Savannah, the client um, bought the building a little weary of its existing conditions, of its current state and the design of the building. It is a mid-century slash kind of pseudo-brutalist building. It's concrete and tiled, and
And that's the
it's
Municipal Grand.
the Municipal Grand. In our opinion, a really beautiful building. It has a wonderful legacy, and it has a wonderful story with counterparts across Savannah. Of really, Savannah's known for a certain type of architecture, but there's a lot of really beautiful mid-century architecture in Savannah. And a little shout out to SCAD, who has they've done a really wonderful job, kind of purchasing and kind of preserving and caring for these buildings over the years. Um, but
Is that a
that said,
SCAD owned building?
no, it's not.
Oh, okay.
But historically it was a bank, and then the city actually bought it, and it was a municipal building for a very long time. Hence the
Oh.
name Municipal Grand. So it was where people pay their water bills and all of that kind of stuff. So it has this sort of storied past of, people going in and paying their bills. It's not a place people liked to go before, and it was a sad kind of fluorescent lit dark building. Um, but backing up, the client, the only way the client could do this is with historic tax credits. And with historic tax credits, this is a recognized building, at the state and I believe national level. And it is with that, you have to keep certain things. And this goes back to your question about, you know, having to, well, anyway, I won't go there, but we were kind of touching on this a little bit earlier. And you have to keep certain things. And one of those things is this blue mosaic tile that looks like a pool tile. It looks like it belongs in a
Inside, along the
60s,
mezzanine.
70s, 80s pool. It's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
on all of the structural columns.
That's
It's
what you were
along
talking
the
about at
mezzanine of
NAWH.
the, exactly, right.
Okay,
So
now I see it. And we'll put this in,
yes.
we'll actually put this in the YouTube version, and we'll also have links to it in the notes. Just, it's freaking awesome, and all the walnut you use, and just you did a great job here. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. So the client, even before they bought it, they were really nervous. They're like, this blue tile that's everywhere, inside and out. It's can't go away because we have to use tax credits. So it's going to be everywhere. And, they turned to us and they said, do you think that, we hadn't been hired for the project, but we had worked with them in the past, and they, I guess, valued our opinion. And they asked what we thought of it, and we just immediately responded with excitement. We're like, that is cool. Like, that is beautiful. Like, you don't come across it every day. It's blue.
It's very
it's everywhere,
unusual
but
and
you
very
can
hard to
with
work
it.
with, I can imagine, or to get
And
everything to look outstanding.
Exactly. So I would say that's an example where the client was very nervous about existing conditions going in and throughout the process. I think even right up until it all came together, and they've said, I think individually, even all of them to us, just like how excited about how well it integrated into the design, or I should say the design integrated with it, and how it kind of came together. Because I think that was a really nervous thing for them about it being such a huge part of the identity, and the fact that it ended up coming together. So I think working with very unique existing conditions, ones that you might have to hold contingency for. That's why I said it's a little bit of a different answer to your question, but it's an existing condition that the clients were very nervous about, that they're extremely excited about now. So
yeah, it's really, it's stunning, and it's like it's a tile that I probably wouldn't ever choose to work with on a project, but it was there, and you had to build everything around it. I wonder if that type of motif will be resurgent now. As I'm looking at these millions of tiles, if there were areas that were damaged or that you had some kind of structural issue behind, is it easy to replace those, or did you have to have someone who could custom make replacement tiles?
They were retrofit. Yeah. I mean, we were able to find, tiles that worked really well with it.
Wow.
So yeah. And they were cleaned up, considerably. Grout gets dirty over time. Tiles get dirty over time, especially outside. I will say too, that there was inside, while they were always exposed on the exterior, inside they were covered in a kind of a horrible beige wallpaper from, I don't know, maybe the 80s that had yellowed over time.
Nice.
Maybe even when people still smoked in the building, but you couldn't see it inside. So that's another thing I guess the client was nervous about. You knew it was in there, but you didn't know how much was in there. You really couldn't see it. So until we ripped it all off, you didn't really get a sense of what, it was in our 3D views and renderings, but you couldn't really see it in the space until demo started.
I want to go back to your professorship and stewardship of the next generation, let's say. Recently, I had a professor on from UNLV, Hospitality Design Architecture School. It's a graduate program. And I was saying, God, the students that go to UNLV, when they really think about how to expand their minds and push the limits of what's possible, Vegas, I know it's not for everyone, but they do crazy things there, right?
Yes.
And how do you, so just by virtue of like landing in Las Vegas and doing your graduate program in architectural design, right, you're kind of plugged into some insane things and seeing crazy things being built. How do you get younger architects to think more expansively about what's potential, specifically in hospitality design?
I would say, like, reading, honestly.
Really?
I teach at the design studio, so it's like, we're designing a building, right? So it's not really a seminar or a research course, but I would say, not necessarily has to be reading a book, although reading a book is great, but like just like, reading the news, whether it's real news, like, political news, but also just design news, like being aware of what people are doing in the world. I think, I mentioned silos earlier, and I really feel strongly that you avoid silos as much as possible. And this is when, particularly we're in a state, I'm speaking about Maine, where I am right now, a state that is, it's it's not densely populated. It's actually one of the oldest by age states in the country. There's one accredited program in the state, which is the University of Maine Augusta. So there's already, it's a bit of a silo with young architects studying in Maine. So I think it's really important to kind of expand your horizons. And I think the best way to do that in a relatively rural state is to engage with resources like reading and the news and, history. I think history is really important. You can always think you're doing something for the first time, but you're probably not. Like, it's probably been done and been proven and been tested. Also, participating in, it's one of the reasons, for Architalks, which is the architecture lecture series that I run in April every year. It's going into its 40th year next year. I have not been the president that whole time, but so it's a really wonderful lecture series where we bring people intentionally from out of state. It's, we bring people nationally, internationally. Last year we had Deborah Burke and Moshe Safdie. This year we're bringing Bridget Shim and a few others, and so we're bringing really wonderful, diverse people from around the country in, from big offices to academia, to be able to bring their voices to Maine. And it's really important that not only the community participates, but also our students. So, not pushing, what's the right word? Encouraging the students to go and to participate and to be
Well,
part
it's a
of that
form of
series.
pushing.
It's
gotta-
really, really important. Like, opening your mind and like looking outside of your periphery is how you stay, I guess, back to your question, is it's how you stay, I guess, interested and excited about new things. I believe that was the core of your question.
Yeah.
About how to keep young people kind of interested.
Yeah, and continue to expand their minds, right? I'm a huge fan of Deborah Burke. One of the things I appreciate about her, well, many, I've only met her maybe once or twice, I don't remember, but I do a bunch of work with her office, and they're great. Shout out. But as a professor, right? She had a studio, has a studio. It was Deborah Burke. Now she rebranded it as 10 Burke because she wants that to grow past her name, right? And it's pretty awesome, and it's cool that she comes up and does your architects as well. A really good friend of mine bought one of the houses she designed in the next town over from me in Connecticut. I just go in there, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Wow. And I'm currently working on a project with them right now, which is pretty fun.
And she's also the dean of Yale.
Well, that's what I meant from as an education, right? So she's up in New Haven, right up the road here, and that architectural school is freaking amazing. That's a really cool brutalist building.
It's very cool. It's actually one of my favorite buildings on the planet.
Oh, really?
So yes, absolutely. I love Paul Rudolph.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Have you been down to the Hotel Marcel down by the water there?
I haven't, since it's been completed, but when I was in New Haven, it was still the kind of like, it's still an IKEA parking lot, but anyway, it was just an office building when I was there.
Oh,
but
next time you're down, a friend of mine designed it. Like, we can go check it out. It's pretty cool. But as far as all the work she's done, from education to entrepreneurship to just the portfolio of projects that she and her team have worked on over the years, it's really astounding, and something I think we can all aspire to. I'm not an architect, so I can't do a lot of that stuff. But as you look to the future, what excites you most and really helps you get up out of bed every day?
Well, I guess that's great. I would say excitement for architecture and design. That's really the fundamental core of it. And it's also something I was just going to kind of tack on to the students' experience. And I would say staff as well, or sorry, staff team, our team is just like excitement. When Anne Marie and I started, we actually used this is a bit of our mantra when we were in grad school together, when we met. It's just like, we're making space. Like, it's fun. Like, architecture should be fun. And I feel like so many architects and designers just like, it's very easy to get in your head about things, but they they really take themselves very seriously, and we should. We're building things that are important, are right, into code, and are healthy and safe. But ultimately, it really should be really fun. Like, as long as we're having fun with our projects, like I'm happy. We want to have fun with our clients. We want to have fun with our team. We want to have fun with our contractor, knowing that we're being professionals and getting the work done in an efficient and timely manner. But you know, I think it goes back to culture. Just building a good culture of positivity with discipline is. I just think it's good, and the project can be big, the project can be small,
Mhm.
but as long as it's kind of it's thoughtful, it's it's collaborative. We really value kind of clarity and restraint. So
Mhm.
whether it's big or small, as long as you have that kind of clarity and restraint in your design process, and it has a clear kind of backbone, that's really fun. So I would say, like, I don't, I guess, maybe that answered your question very, very broadly, but
No,
it's,
it,
it's
it
why we,
actually it
yeah.
answers it perfectly because, like, to kind of wrap here, if we go back to when I finally connected the dots, seeing you at NEWH New England up on the dais, right? You're investing your time into this nonprofit organization that helps raise scholarship.
Mhm.
You're you're teaching. You you're on the board of Architalks. You didn't found it
Mhm.
because you're not that old, but like you're investing in your culture, much in the same way in nonprofits that I'm involved with or where I dedicate my time mentoring others. I challenge everyone, whether you're an architect or just starting off, have your own firm or just starting off in your career. I think everyone has at least 5% of their time that's fungible in that they can dedicate it, right? So I know we don't work 40 hours a week, but that's 2 hours, right? In the course of your work, in your work life, just your work life. I think that everyone can find 2 hours to dedicate to something other than just your day to day to impact others and help lift them, encourage them, inspire them. And I'm sure you're doing way more than 2 hours on that front. But I think my takeaway here, and for all the listeners, is it's so important that we all take at least 2 of those hours and dedicate to giving back in some way and inspiring and mentoring. And it doesn't have to be super complicated, but we all have those 2 hours. And I get the sense that you're you're way in the green there as far as how much time you're dedicating to that. And I can just see from your portfolio, just the projects that you're working on, your career trajectory, I just get the sense that that's also paying dividends for you. And that's not why you do it, but it just helps. And getting yourself out there and inspiring others, it's amazing. And I'm so glad that we reconnected, Andrew. And I'm so embarrassed that I didn't put it all together sooner. But the best time to plant a tree?
No.
20 years ago or today. So Um, but I just want to say thank you for being here, sharing your story, and I know inspiring others to dedicate some more time to encouraging others to be more expansive.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Dan. And I appreciate the time and to be able to share a little bit more about AMP and about kind of our process and, um, yeah, our I guess our practice and, our way of engaging the community. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you. And if people wanted to learn more about you and AMP, what's a good way for them to?
Yeah, the most direct is just our website. It's ampstudio.com, and AMP is with two A's. And then our Instagram and I think LinkedIn, they're all the same, just AMP Studio. And you can reach out to hello@ampstudio.com if you want to get in touch directly.
Awesome. And I want to thank you again. And I want to thank all of our listeners and watchers. If this has changed your idea on how to inspire and encourage others, or how to work on more difficult projects, or you know someone who could benefit from this, please pass it along. We grow a lot by word of mouth. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you so much. And we will catch you next time.